What if there was a way to make a narcissist expose themselves? Just blurt out who they truly are. No masks, no charm, no fake humility, just raw, unfiltered narcissism. And I do not mean by confronting them or calling them out. No, that would make them defensive, won't it? What I am talking about is way more subtle. It's about making them reveal themselves without them realizing. Because if there is one thing a narcissist cannot resist, it is the chance to perform. And if you give them the right conditions, I assure you they will put on a show that makes it painfully obvious who they truly are. Hi, I am Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional. Welcome to my channel. The topic for today's episode is 5 ways to trick a narcissist into revealing their true self without them knowing. Number 1, the play dumb technique. Narcissists love to feel superior. It is one of the quickest ways to get them to reveal themselves. All you have to do is act a little clueless, ask a few innocent questions, and watch them go off the rails. They can't resist an opportunity to educate someone. They love to lecture, especially if it makes them feel like an expert. If they are bragging about their business success, ask them to explain how they got started and pay attention. If they actually know what they're talking about, they will give you clear, logical answers. But if they're faking it, they will start tripping over their own words, making things up, contradicting themselves, basically lying. If you ask them follow-up questions, they may even get irritated because now they have to keep the lie going. A lot of narcissists build their entire identity around the idea that they are the smartest person in the room. They can fool anybody. But when you act like you need their wisdom and just let them talk, they often expose the fact that they don't actually know as much as they pretend to. And if you keep asking harmless, innocent questions, you will see them either getting really angry or struggling to maintain their facade. Either way, they reveal themselves. Number 2, the let them talk strategy. Narcissists cannot help but talk about themselves. They dominate conversations, and the longer they talk, the more their true nature slips out. So instead of engaging, challenging them, or trying to call them out, just let them talk. Keep nodding, keep looking interested, and just give them little nudges. The more you let them talk, the deeper they go. They start revealing things they did not mean to say, their slip of tongue, revealing their hidden intentions and motivations. They expose their contradictions, their cruelty, their superiority complex, falsely believing that everybody thinks like they do. They will even start bragging about things that a normal person would be embarrassed about. How they lied to get their way, how they played mind games just to feel powerful. They'll just openly talk about it. They think they are in control of the conversation, but really they are digging their own grave if you pay attention. The longer they talk, the more obvious it becomes that they're not the person they pretend to be. Number 3, the fake admiration trap. Narcissists crave praise, whether they show it or not. It is their fuel, their lifeline, their reason for existing. But this is where it gets interesting. When you lay it on just a little too thick, they do not just accept it, they escalate it. At first, they soak it up, nodding along, feeling like they're finally being seen for the superior being they think they are. But then they start to get carried away. You tell them they're the most intelligent person you have ever met. And instead of brushing it off like a normal person would, they start going into grandiose territory. They tell you they could have been running the country by now if they had chosen a different career. They claim their IQ is higher than Einstein's. They start giving you stories of how people have always looked up to them, how they were born special, how they just know things most people don't. And suddenly they don't sound like a confident, successful person anymore. They sound delusional. They sound like somebody desperate to be seen as larger than life. And that right there, that is their real self. See, narcissists cannot help but overextend when they feel admired. They cannot stop themselves from taking it too far, from pushing beyond what is believable, because their hunger for praise is never satisfied. So all you have to do is give them a little push and they will do the rest. Number 4, the mild criticism test. Narcissists cannot handle even the smallest hint of criticism. You know that, don't you? They don't see it as feedback, they see it as an attack on their very identity. A normal person, if you correct them on something small, will probably say, oh, oops, thanks for catching that. But a narcissist, that's a different story. Tell them they misspelled a word in an email, and they will either flat out deny it or argue that it's actually an alternative spelling. Can you believe that? Tell them they have got a date wrong in a story and they'll swear you are mistaken. Mention that their restaurant recommendation wasn't as great as they hyped it up to be, and suddenly you are the problem for being negative all the time. They can't just say, oh, my bad. They have to rewrite reality so that they're always right. And in doing so, they expose how fragile their ego is. A tiny piece of criticism is all it takes to make them spiral into defensiveness, denial, and sometimes even outright rage. They may start attacking you, flipping the script, making you feel like you did something wrong just for pointing out a harmless mistake or an obvious truth. And that is when you see it, the deep insecurity underneath all that bravado, as I say. Number 5, the empathy test. Narcissists don't have empathy. Now, it's not lack of empathy, they do not have it. They can fake it in certain situations, of course, but it is always superficial. The best way to see this is to bring up someone else's suffering and watch how they react. Tell them about a co-worker who got laid off and is struggling to support his family to make ends meet. A normal person would probably say something like, oh, that's awful, I hope he finds something soon. But a narcissist, their response will be cold, dismissive, or even outright cruel. If it is a covert narcissist, they will somehow make it about their pain and will say, oh, I am suffering more than them. The overt narcissist will comment something like this about your laid off coworker. Well, that's life. Some people just can't handle competition, can they? Or, honestly, probably deserved it. Or, that's why I always make sure I'm irreplaceable. They don't even realize what they are revealing. They are showing clear as day that they don't actually care about other people's struggles. They are exposing the fact that deep down they lack real compassion. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. You will start noticing it in every conversation. The way they minimize other people's pain, the way they subtly blame people for their own misfortunes, the way they shift the conversation back to themselves. Because they can't stand focusing on someone else's struggles for too long. And that is when you know you are dealing with someone who isn't just arrogant, but fundamentally incapable of true connection. Now, what to do once they reveal their true self? Once you have seen their true nature? The fundamental question is, what do you do with all that information? You do not argue with them. You do not try to change them. You do not expect them to suddenly have a breakthrough moment, because they won't. You only have two real choices. You can emotionally detach and stop expecting them to be someone they are not, or you can start planning your way out of the relationship altogether. Either way, the key is this: stop playing their game. You can never win. The minute you stop reacting, stop feeding their need for control, stop engaging in their manipulation, they lose. And that is how you trick a narcissist into exposing themselves without them even knowing. Let me know in the comments below if you have tried any of this and if it has worked. With that, let's bring this episode to an end. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you in the next one. Until then, as always, let the healing begin and continue.